Networking and marketing made simple is for you, the business owner who has a product, a service, or a message that you believe in. My name is Scott Aaron, and each week we'll take a behind-the-scenes look into the real-world marketing and networking tactics and strategies for getting what you have in front of you to a lot more people. Thanks for spending time with me, and now let's get started. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Networking and Marketing Made Simple. Super excited for today's episode. Mark Sias is a very unique individual in the sense of his background. And if I was to tell you that obviously he's running his own successful notary firm, but also course creator, but also nursing background, and yes, ex-professional wrestler, there's a lot to wrap our arms around. So we do have a bunch to tie into today's episode. So without further ado, Mark, welcome to today's episode.
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me on. It sounds like I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
Listen, we're just adult kids, so sometimes that's not a bad thing, because to have our hands in different pots, obviously we realize what we do love. But I don't even know where to begin because I'm so interested in your journey. But I would say to go back before we go forward. Obviously, you've done a multitude of things. Obviously, you've written books, you have your podcast, you have your courses, you have your company, you've done nursing, you've done wrestling. What do you feel if you had to like rewind the tape and kind of stop it at a certain point in your journey that you feel was kind of like that shining moment, that aha moment where you're like, yes, this is the journey that I want to go down. This is the path that I want to take. What would you say that moment was for you?
That's a great question. And I would say in each of those stages, there was some, on some small level, there was an aha. I mean, I can remember going way back to before nursing when I was a paramedic, and the schooling was tough. And I was like, well, do you want to do this or not? Because if you want to do it, just commit to learning what you want to do. And just on that level where I almost flunked out, but then I just changed my mindset to just make it happen then. Um, probably if I had flunked out of that, I might not have ever done anything. So I think that established a track record of you can do just about anything you put your mind to, I believe, if you stay committed to it. One of the things I think was most pivotal to business success, because I've tried a lot of things that flopped. I mean, I'm guilty of trying a number of things that haven't worked, and of course, get back up and try something else. I think the pivotal thing was starting the notary business. Was just the idea of it. At that time, I had stepped away from critical care nursing and was doing home health nursing. And this idea had popped in my head. Well, what if you could offer a service that was faster and easier to do than the home health, but then could somehow even make more money? And I just kind of pondered that idea for a while. And then the idea of a notary service just popped in my head. And I was like, well, let's just try it. Let's see what happens. Excuse me. And then lo and behold, it worked. And that, of course, that curiosity factor led to kind of, let's look at this industry as a whole and see where you can really make your mark.
So even though it was a brief stint, we were talking in the pre-show that you were in kind of like the minor leagues of the WWE, and obviously, dabbled, learned from that experience. What would you say, obviously they're behind the curtain, so to speak. A lot of people see what they see on TV, but, and they may watch Tough Enough or whatever, the MTV show that we all watched back in the day. You don't realize when you're then embedded into something, what it's actually like. What was something, two-part question, what was something that you found out about going through the process of becoming a professional wrestler that you did not realize, but also from that year or so spent learning about becoming a professional wrestler, what was the big lesson that you learned from that you were able to take into the current business that you're running?
Yes, yes. So those are great questions. So the first part of that is outside looking in, I was in pretty good physical condition and I had a background, did martial arts, did gymnastics. So pretty agile, even for a big person. So I thought this is just like um, getting to play as an adult. It's going to be a blast. And there are parts of it that are really fun, but I think what people probably don't know is it's very excruciating. It is very exhaustive and very intensive. It is it's every bit. I have every bit of respect for the people doing that, the guys doing that, um, because it is a lot of conditioning to do that. It doesn't probably because you're watching it and you're entertained, you don't realize that they're going at this for 10, 15 minutes, almost full blast. And it's very excruciating. Um, getting towards the end of the kind of the development where they're just teaching you everything, it got hard to not quit. There were just times I wanted to quit. And I think the takeaway of not quitting it and what I took from that going forward is the the camaraderie, the group support, because the other guys were in there with it. They were in there with it, just like if you were in the Marines or something, they're in it with you. So you had the support group of these other people. And at the same time, you also didn't want to let them down either. So that was an important aspect that you're not in everything alone. You do have other people. There's some people that got your back and that you'll have their back.
So you're a two-time author now. The first book that you released was A Golden Pen. And then obviously the newer book called A Digital Pen, obviously, which we'll kind of talk about. And I think something that my wife and I always talk about is that every single one of us has a book inside of us. We're writing a book every day that we're on this planet. But so many people get in their own way and they have that imposter syndrome, like, who am I to write a book? Who the hell's going to read it? That kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What was the outside of the Digital Pen, which is the most recent book, the Golden Pen, which was your first book, what was I would say, the motivating factor behind that, writing that first book and putting it out there? And for all those that are listening to this, that really have that drive and that notion to want to write a book, but are afraid to, what was one of the most positive things that came about, finally hitting go and publishing that book for everyone to read?
Well, it's pretty neat when you see your name in there. You're an author and you're on Amazon. That's pretty neat. I didn't really consider all that initially. I felt like, just like you said, I had a book inside me. I had stuff that I felt would add value to the industry that I'm in, and I felt like there were our niches, if you want to say that, within the niche that people tend to gravitate towards, and I felt like that business model was somewhat flawed, and I felt like it was going to come to a point where that people were going to be negatively impacted if they were running their business that way. And I kind of wanted to almost issue a warning, like, hey, this is how I'm doing this. I'm not doing just this one part of it, the low hanging fruit. I've transitioned and found other opportunities within here to make a business model a lot more stable. And I almost felt like I was had to like kind of warn people or give them some more insight, like, hey, listen, there's a whole lot more here than meets the eye. So that was one part of it, and I think the other part is it was just in me. I just felt like I had to tell people, you know.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we have when something is inside of you, and it's almost like selfish in a way for us not to put it out there for other people to read. That's how I felt a long time, prior to writing my first of 3 LinkedIn books. The first one was in me for a while, and my wife was the big motivating factor. She goes, you need to get a book out there. You need to write about everything that you've experienced, and how we've grown and scaled, and all the people that you're helping. Like, you need to help the masses. Now, I mean, you made an interesting transition, obviously 2019, right before the pandemic. You quit your nursing job, you started your own unique legal service business, the Noble Notary and Legal Document Preparers, which I love what you say is that it's low overhead, low inventory, high demand, and high markup. You know, that's called a small and mighty business. That's the same kind of business that my wife and I run. And that's what we try to teach people, to work smarter, not harder, right? You know, fill a void and a gap and a hole that is there for people where there's demand for it. You provide that demand, you solve those people's problems. What was that journey like for you going from, and you've always been serving people in some way, shape, or form, whether it was entertaining people in wrestling, you know, paramedics serving people that way, the nursing profession serving people that way, and now in the legal arena serving people. So you've always been that servant type of person, you and your wife. And what would you say was, you know, the big catalyst that led you pre-pandemic to leave the nursing profession to, you know, obviously start your legal business for others?
There were several things that were catalysts, and one was job burnout. I mean, the critical care field is just, it was, you know, it was a third shifts I was working, and weekends, holidays, poor schedules. So there was a burnout factor that where I was always looking for something else. Um, and then the other part of it was I just felt like if I wanted to advance myself in that career space, I was looking at $50,000 in education expenses, and the increase in pay would be like 25%. It just didn't make sense. It was poor math to me, and I just couldn't help but think there's got to be a better way to do things. There's got to be some other, either something I can either do with this skill set or another skill set that I can acquire quickly that will make good sense for us. And this happened to be it. I mean, it happened to work out. There's a lot of, obviously it wasn't an overnight success. There's a lot of work and learning that goes into stuff, but on the face of it, like you said, low overhead, low inventory, there wasn't really any financial risk to it. It either was going to work or it wasn't, but the amount I had to put out to find that out was minimal.
So what would you say, you know, the niche market that you serve, who are the types of clients that you guys serve? And if someone was to ask you, you know, what makes you guys different or more unique than other people in your space, what would you say to that?
Yeah, those are good questions too. So the market that we serve both B2B and B2C. I think a lot of people in our business model in the, we'll say, mobile notary service tend to get stuck at the B2B, which would be title companies and attorneys, settlement companies like that, debt settlement companies, where you're saying, listen, my business, you have a customer who's remote to you, but they're close to me. So I will serve you by facilitating that transaction or executing it. And that is a very common practice in this, in this legal service space. But the community and the public also have a need for this too, and they usually tend to be senior citizens. They are in like an assisted living facility, or they're in the hospital where they really don't have a choice. They're having to make last minute decisions, and in some cases, those decisions are very important ones, and they don't have the time to waste either. So they need somebody who can move quickly. And so that is kind of the page two of it, or the B2B or the B2C, excuse me, that we focus on. I think what has made us stand out from the pack is that we not only can just have a notary show up, but we can track down the documents you need, even have them tailored to you if needed. And that again is just, it's just one more way of over delivering. I think part of it, how you talked about, you always kind of had a servant nature. I think that if you look at the business in a standpoint, somewhat of an altruistic standpoint, rather than a how much money am I going to put in my pocket right now standpoint, it really has an impact. It resonates with people. They can tell you really care.
You know, I love that perspective and that point of view because, you know, my wife and I are big believers in that when you lead with service, and again, going back to what you said, you're providing a solution for people. And it's great that you serve both the B2C and B2B space because, you know, again, to your point, there's probably other people out there that just serve B2B or just serve B2C. you have that multifaceted business model where you can serve both markets, which is great. So what does it feel like now, going from, I don't want to say trading time for dollars, but again, you've always been employed by other people. And we talk about how being a business owner and entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. It's not for everyone. Not everyone can do it. And again, we need employees. We need people that would rather work for someone else. Obviously, now you're on the other side of that, going from working for someone else, really working the hours that you didn't want to work, now to a place where you're kind of controlling that yourself. What has been the biggest takeaway or benefit from crossing that bridge from becoming and going from employee to business owner with where you are right now?
The benefit is definitely that there is a lot more leverage and a lot more flexibility in your scheduling and in your time. I can make a lot more money with a lot less time invested. And I'm here, I'm at home. So I'm not sleeping all day because I worked all night. That is a definite benefit. The flexible scheduling. If I don't want to take something or I'm not able to, I can either outsource it or just turn it down entirely, um, based on what I've got going on around me. So those are distinct benefits. I'm not at the mercy of a boss telling me what my schedule is going to be and tell me the biggest thing that used to gripe me was meetings. Like in nursing, it was always these meetings, and they'd be like end of shift meetings. Like you work 12 hours, you're tired, you want to go, and it's like, oh, surprise, we've got a meeting, and we need to talk about who the latest self-important person is. And that used to drive me nuts. And so we have no meetings. There's no company meetings. The I think the perspective I would tell people is that with this versus when you are an employee, you are made to do things. And if you're a person who needs to be made to do things, you should probably stay in that space. If you're a person who doesn't need to be made to do things, you can make yourself do things. It's definitely worth exploring this space.
Yeah, I always tell people that you don't know the other side of the coin if you actually don't try to experience it yourself. And you may find that other side of the coin is not a good fit for you. You'd rather just be told what to do and have a job responsibility, clock in, clock out, and go home. And that's completely fine. I honor and appreciate those people, but there's other individuals like you and I, where we now consider ourselves psychologically unemployable, where we want to take orders from ourselves and create our own life and not have anyone else determine that. Now, the two books, the Golden Pen and the Digital Pen, uh, who are they directed to, and what could the reader learn, and who's the best person to read that book?
That's man, you got great questions. So I think that is directed towards somebody. Maybe they have got um, an entrepreneurial sense, and they want to look at the ideas like a 30,000 overview and just see these ideas I lay out where you could get started on a shoestring budget, or some people say bootstrapping. But I think the main audience is somebody, maybe you've got a notary commission in your back pocket. Maybe you were working it and it dried up for you and you had to go back to a job. You can take a look at all the other opportunities that are available to you. What I call a multi-service business or a multi-legal service business looks like versus just trying to run a notary business or just trying to run that B2B market that may be competitive or may be saturated. So just looking at if you have this kind of cafe of things that mesh well, they mesh very well together. It's the same kind of equipment and it's very similar knowledge base. Why not take advantage of that?
Absolutely. And I think, we have a lot of similarities, not so much in the industry that we're in. We're both entrepreneurs. We both own our own businesses. We both have written multiple books and have a podcast. And that leads me to your podcast. Obviously, one of the things that my wife and I always talk about, to be considered an expert or a go-to person in your space, obviously it's having a signature product or service, which you guys have, having a book that obviously where people can get to know, like, and trust you, and then having something in the audio space where people can learn from you about what really separates you from other people. Well, number one, what's the name of your podcast? And number two, who does that podcast serve? outside of the books that you've written, and what can people learn from tuning into the podcast?
So the podcast is the Notary Ninja Show, and it corresponds with our YouTube channel, which is the Notary Ninja Show. And then we actually have two YouTube channels. So then we have Noble Notary Signing Service Agency, which that channel kind of bleed through or syndicate some of the stuff from the Notary Ninja Show, but we also use that as a function of advertising our business locally too. So the Notary Ninja Show is, I think, specifically for people who are looking to get into the notary space, into the legal services space, and or are already in it and are looking to pivot, looking to ramp up. The dead space that I've observed in this niche is that a lot of the marketing methods they're archaic. Um, they just haven't gotten up to speed with things like landing pages, email drip campaigns, stuff that is very makes a big difference. And it seems like when I look through YouTube and stuff, nobody's really talking about that stuff. They're kind of talking about the same thing that everybody else talked about, maybe put a different spin on it. And I do too, just for the sake of putting content out there. I'll talk about what errors and omissions insurance is, where, what the role of your Secretary of State. I'll put some of that stuff out just for the sake of you know putting it on the internet, but I really try to drive home this almost like a self-actualization message, and the importance, and if not just the actual demonstration of different digital marketing skills, and then even reviewing things. I'll go into reviews of maybe other programs or other industry leaders, and some of them are really good, and some of them same thing. I'll call out the shortcomings if I see, like, hey, they're not talking about, like, right now the real estate market's horrible, and it seems like I'm the only person who's calling the elephant in the room. Like, hey, this is a bad time to do just this business model. It's a good time to do a variety of things. People, when you look at like it from the marketing to the public, people are that's always going to be there, and it's probably always going to grow. The real estate's it's always going to be a roller coaster. So you shouldn't make that your only trick.
I completely agree. And just two final questions before we sign off today. First, if someone is interested to learn more about the company that you and your wife have, how you serve people, products and offerings that you have, in addition to the podcast and your books, what's the best place for people to go to connect with you?
Yeah, they can find a lot of our resources, and basically contact us directly on legaldocprepnotary.com. That is our main website. We have about a bazillion other little websites that support that. At FloridaNotaryServices.org, that's kind of how we market the agency to other towns in Florida. But so that would be the main way to reach us, would be legal.prepnotary.com. And
Awesome.
you could see you kind of what our business model looks like right from that website, because all our services are right there in your face. And of course, you could contact us from there. The courses that we offer, there's links from there to them. The Notary Prosperity Academy is what we call our flagship course, and that is a big chunk of everything I know. So we've also kind of broken that up into smaller pieces for people who, like, if you weren't even a notary and you just kind of wanted to glimpse in and say, "May, is this something for me?" We have little, $17 course. I call it the Notary Umbrella. It just kind of like shows you how to get commissioned easy, kind of what it's all about. If somebody just wanted to kind of dip a toe in, you don't have to you don't have to take out your credit card or take a loan out. The big course, the flagship course, that's for people who are serious. They're like, okay, I want to run an agency like you do. I want to do just what you do.
Awesome. Love that. And yeah, all the information, obviously it was just dropped, will be in the description of the episode, and obviously the show notes. So before we sign off today, Mark, if you were to, and again, this is a wide net question, there is no wrong answer, but what does success truly mean to you?
It is, and that's a broad answer. I mean, I give you a generic answer. It is just committing yourself to getting better, on a daily basis, weekly basis, just on a micro level. What can I get better at? What more can I learn today that I didn't know yesterday? And then I can apply that. And that is success.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always I always say to people that that the peak of one mountain is the valley of the next. So we're always looking to move the needle forward, always looking to improve, always get better. Perfection does not exist, right? We're always imperfect, and we're always going to have failures that lead to successes. And that's what it's all about. So, Mark, just want to thank you so much again for being here today. Love this episode, and want to really um, convey to all the people listening to this episode, if something that Mark said really struck a chord with you. Obviously, legaldocprepnotary.com is the place to find him and everything that they do. And obviously that'll be in the show notes. So Mark, thank you again for being here today.
Thanks, Scott. It was my pleasure.
Absolutely. So everyone, as always, wherever you're listening this to and from, subscribe, leave comments, let us know what you loved most. And again, if there's any topics, any guests that you have that you would like to see on the show, we would appreciate that feedback. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much again for checking out today's episode. And if you are listening through iTunes, Spotify, wherever you are, please leave me a rating and review. Let me know what you loved, what you would like to see improved, or ideas you have for future episodes. And if you are interested in taking your business to the next level, don't hesitate to go to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me, where I can learn more about you, your business, what you're struggling with, and how we can work together. And don't forget to check out my wife, Nancy, and mine, our free community on Facebook called LinkedIn Leads for Life. We would love to see you in there. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you everyone for your support. Grateful for each and every one of you.